Today's topic, asset protection for the non-billionaires. That's right, asset protection is not just for the ultra wealthy, it's for everyone. And we're gonna walk through some of the easiest ways that you can implement asset protection today. Some of those are as simple as just having actual retirement accounts protected by something called ERISA. Do you have an umbrella policy? Do you LLC it? Are you taking advantage of your state's homestead? That's right. Those are just a few. We got even more coming up, so stay tuned. That's all coming up next. The first topic, the LLC, the limited liability company. Very popular topic, especially with our group of people, our physicians, usually in the form of rental real estate. I could also make this argument, obviously, for other business entities, but even risky assets, think like four-wheelers and jet skis. But here is how the LLC can add asset protection for you. And we're going to use the example of rental real estate. So when you have an LLC, I would say it gives you two forms of protection. It gives you inside and outside protection. So what is inside protection? So you buy this rental real estate, it is now owned by the LLC. The whole goal of this is to separate that business, that LLC, from your personal assets. And here's how it can protect you on the inside. You have a tenant in there, they get injured in your home, they sue you, right? Let's just say in this example, it all plays out and they win. Your goal is that the only thing they come after is the only thing in that LLC. In this example, let's just hope that the only thing in that LLC is that rental property, which is another important part. So if you own 3 rental properties and you put them all into the same LLC, keep in mind, all 3 of those properties are now at risk. This is why traditionally all of our clients, each rental property is owned by a separate LLC. So this is providing inside protection, meaning that if someone gets hurt inside the home and they sue you, we're trying to carve out that value, that property as the only thing they can come after, right? The other one that most people don't think about is outside protection. What does that mean? Let's just say you're sued personally. So you're just sued personally. Let's just say you get in a car accident, right? They sue you, they win again, right? They're on fire right now, they won again. Now, your LLC is also safeguarded from the outside. And at worst, they can put charging orders on this. And while I'm not an attorney, and we should also make that very important distinction right now, this is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. You should talk to a real attorney. But the worst thing that could happen here is charging orders. But most attorneys would tell you that for the most part, if planned properly, charging orders are really useless. So that's where an LLC gives you both inside and outside protection. Now pay attention to your state's rules. And this is where having a great attorney is really helpful, because sometimes your state will say a single member LLC doesn't do anything for you. It'll say that, they can still come after that. They don't consider that really protected. They might say that on the other side of it, a multi-member LLC does have better protection. And if I had to default the most common answer, a multi-member LLC will provide more protection in most states. So keep that in mind. So if it's just an LLC with just your name on it, but your state says, hey, it needs to be a multi-member LLC to get that better protection, just keep that in mind. All right. And then the other thing to keep in mind with LLCs at all time is going to be that you're trying to really safeguard your assets to make sure that no one can come after them from a personal perspective. So you're always trying to carve that out. So this is why the LLC is important. You have the charging orders that we're keeping an eye on. You got to keep an eye on the single member versus multi-member LLC. And really the main benefits are going to be that inside, outside coverage. So first one, the LLC, yes, it's gonna probably cost a couple $1,000s if you work with an attorney. I'm sure you could do it online for cheaper, but we usually opt to try to go with the attorney just to get better direction, get better documents. So number one though, the LLC in terms of asset protection. One more thing to add to the LLC side. I knew when I was thinking through that I wanted to add one more thing. Don't forget to treat it like a business. This is also a common fumble for a lot of individuals, meaning that if you don't treat it like a business entity, a judge can, what we say, pierce the corporate veil, meaning that even though you have it in an LLC, but if you were mixing it in with your personal checking account, your personal savings account, it was kind of just going with the flow, that usually will not hold up very well in court. So just keep that in mind. It is a business. You have to treat it like a business. This doesn't have to mean anything crazy, but having a separate checking account or a separate savings account where, let's use rental real estate again, all the income comes into one bank account, all the expenses come out of one bank account. Maybe there's a separate credit card for this LLC for when you have to have the maintenance guy come over. Just make sure you treat the LLC with the respect that it deserves, treat it like a business, because if not, even though you have it as an LLC, that does not mean it's going to provide the proper protection if you do not follow those steps. The next one, retirement accounts. I know what you're thinking. That doesn't seem too hard. I know, and this is one of the ones that is what we call our low-hanging fruit, and it's really your cheapest one. You could argue it's technically free, but your retirement accounts protected by ERISA. So usually right here, we're looking at your 401k and 403b. These are very, very strong forms of asset protection. You could really argue they're fully protected. Now, the one thing that you should not include in this conversation is IRAs and Roth IRAs. While they are protected at the state level. So this is why knowing your state rules are important. Some states protect both of them. Some states protect one of them. Some are partially exempt. I always use California as an example. California IRAs are protected, but Roth IRAs are not. Kind of unique, right? So these are little details that you need to pay attention to, especially again for our people physicians, where we are worried about more of the possibility of some form of liability. But even there, remember, you could just be driving down the street as a regular old Joe or Jane, and this could come to you. So you need to be aware of all of these. The other thing that's really unique is you should always track if you move money to an IRA. So if you do a 401k to an IRA rollover, that's a whole nother topic for a different day, but let's just say you do that. Try to always segregate those assets on their own, meaning don't blend in any other contributions, because even in that rollover, you still keep asset protection. Where it can get a little bit messy is if you did an IRA rollover, but then still made IRA contributions into that same account. You make the same argument for like a Roth 401k into a Roth IRA, but you're trying not to commingle those funds. So it's kind of like this side one that some people know about and some people don't, but one of your best forms of asset protection is just your retirement accounts protected by ERISA. Usually here, again, your 401k, 403b are the most common examples there. One more thing to keep in mind for the IRA rollovers, it can also go the other way. So if you are in one of those states that do not provide good IRA protection or good Roth IRA protection, or both, see if your qualified plan will allow incoming rollovers. So in this example, you would move your IRA back into a 401k plan. This is pretty common. We actually do this quite a bit. Same thing with the Roth IRA. See if you can get that into the Roth 401k if possible. But this is a good way if you're really worried about asset protection and you live in a state that does not provide totality in terms of coverage for asset protection for your IRA, Roth IRA, and or both. This is another way that you can work around that to add in some better asset protection. Next up, your Homestead Exemption. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Another one that is state specific. I'll use myself as an example here. So your Homestead Exemption protects one of our most cherished assets, right? Our home. Sometimes it's the largest asset for a lot of individuals, especially early on, right? That's your largest asset on the balance sheet per se. So what the Homestead Exemption says is it's gonna protect a certain amount of your home value, your home equity. Some states, it's nothing. Again, use myself as an example. Pennsylvania, kaput, nothing. Now we live in Florida, unlimited. Could literally have a $3 million home. We don't. That is fully protected. So that is the difference between states. Some states have really unique rules. We have a few clients in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, the default is $125,000, but if you fill out one form, it goes the whole way up to $500,000 by just filling out a form. But if you don't know these little rules, you could be missing out on that free asset protection. This is also why some clients, some people will then end up using a different state to be their primary state, right? You build up this huge net worth in a state that doesn't have any protection. All of a sudden you want to become a snowbird, and Florida's now your primary residence. Helps from a state tax perspective, but also brings in that homestead exemption. So there's a little bit of a chess game that you can play here as well. But understand the homestead exemption rules for your state and making sure you're taking full advantage of what is available to you, especially in some of those states like Massachusetts, where a simple form can give you a lot more homestead coverage. Next up, another slam dunk, something called Tenants By The Entirety. Sometimes tenants in the entirety. We usually call it a tie, so tenancy in entirety, but you'll sometimes see custodians listed a little bit differently, but you're looking for tenancy in the entirety or tenancy by the entirety. Key here is it's only available in certain states. If memory serves me correct, it's 18 states. If you don't live in one of those 18 states, sorry, you don't get that option. Again, going back to my last note though, if you can say that you live full-time in a certain state, like a Florida or a state that offers it, Pennsylvania offers it, New Jersey offers it, that is a way for you to add in this protection possibly on some of your taxable investment accounts, and also property. So this could be something that you title your home in. So that is something to also keep in mind here, but this is only available with you and your spouse. So you can't do this with your brother, your sister, your cousin, your mom, your aunt, your uncle. It has to be with your spouse. So that is the one important part of this. So the two big things are spouse, and you need to live in one of those states. But this is one of the most simple forms of asset protection that you can add in without any real cost, right? This is essentially just you doing the proper fidelity document or the proper Vanguard document in just terms of investment accounts or titling the deed of your home properly. So keep an eye out for this one. The other one I want to build on, just kind of keeping this in like the idea of investments, is sometimes it's as simple as moving assets out of the higher risk individual into the lower risk individual. So again, us working with physicians, we have one individual who works in tech at Salesforce, and then their spouse is a surgeon. Who has more risk? On paper, you're probably going to say the surgeon, and you're probably right. So in this example, you could say instead of having an individual account in the surgeon's name, you should have it in the other spouse's name that works in tech at Salesforce. Now, if you are in one of the 18 states that allow tenants by entirety, go with that option instead. But if you're in one of the other 32 states, right, that is something that you can look towards. Now, some clients don't love this idea, but there are other things to look into in terms of asset protection that's one of the more simple ones. You can get more complicated. There's things that are called SLATs, spousal lifetime access trust. There's something called ADAPT, a domestic asset protection trust. They're gonna be a lot more complicated than what we're gonna get into in this YouTube video, but if you're hitting those spots where like, wow, we have a really high net worth, our state has horrific asset protection, what else can we do? Just keep the SLAT and the DAPT in mind, and maybe even reach out to an asset protection attorney. But two simple ones there. Look for that tenancy in the entirety or tenancy by the entirety, and or if you're in, I should say, or you're in a state that does not allow that, look towards moving the assets from the riskier spouse to the less risky spouse in terms of occupation. Last but not least, if you have read my blog post, if you've seen other videos, you know one of my favorite tools for asset protection is the umbrella policy. If you've not heard of the umbrella policy, it's this neat little tool that sits over top of your homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance and your car insurance. And it gets the cool name umbrella because it's really just extra liability over top of your home and your car. Now, when you add in this policy, they'll also say you have to make sure you have certain requirements met on both of those policies in terms of liability. But this is where you can probably go get $1 million of extra liability coverage for like $250 per year. It can vary by state. It can vary based on your driving history, right? If you audition for Fast and Furious, it might be a little bit higher. If you're driving, 40 and a 60 in the slow lane, you could be in a spot where it's a little bit lower, right? So umbrella policies, slam dunk. Also looking to always cover your net worth. So if your net worth is 2, make sure you have a $2 million umbrella policy. If your net worth is 500,000, round it up to $1 million because it's low cost, and some don't even offer less than $1 million. If your net worth goes over a certain number, let's just say you were at 1.3, I would round up to 2 million. Some other things to keep in mind in terms of umbrella policies. If you have kids that are about to get into driving age, increase your umbrella policy now. Because what you'll find out is when you try to increase your umbrella policy, when you have minors driving, they won't let you increase it. A lot of states will put a hard no on that because you have a lot more extra liability. So keep that in mind when you're looking to increase that. You want to do that before they hit that driving age, try to give a little bit higher bump there. But umbrella policies, very low cost, very easy to implement, very easy to increase, but one of your most simple ways to protect on a personal liability perspective. So I always use the example again for our physicians. This is personal liability protection. This does not cover you in terms of a malpractice suit, but if you get into a fender bender or someone's hurting your property, it's going to help safeguard you on the personal side. And there you have it. Some of our favorite tips and tricks for simple asset protection. As I noted in the video, I am not an attorney. Financial planner, not an attorney. This is not legal advice. Consult with a very good attorney if you really want to fine-tune your asset protection game plan. Also keep in mind with a lot of asset protection, there's essentially, we say it's like a 4-year look back. So just be mindful of that, right? If you're like, oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure I have a liability case coming, and then you go and transfer everything to your spouse's name, more than likely, they're going to find that and they're going to bring it back. Same thing if you do it to an LLC. So for a lot of these things, you're just trying to be proactive. I hope you never have to worry about this, whether it's from a liability perspective in a hospital or from just driving down the street. I hope you never have to worry about these. But these are things that you should be proactive on. It is extremely hard, if not nearly impossible, to be reactive because of that 4-year window. So be proactive, get things organized. As always, thanks for hanging out with me for the last 15 minutes or so. Asset protection is a very vital topic, so I hope you get some good takeaways from here. I hope you can implement at least a few of these items. If you have not subscribed, now's a great time to subscribe to the channel. Right here, you can subscribe. If you click on this little bell icon, you'll also be notified every time we send out a new video. As always, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will catch you on the next video.